One question that comes up a lot is whether Japanese women are really into American men. And the short answer? Yes, quite a few are. But the story behind it is way more interesting than just a surface-level yes or no. It's not just about being foreign or exotic. It's about real connection, shared values, and a growing curiosity to explore relationships beyond traditional boundaries. See, Japanese women who are into American guys often appreciate traits like openness, respect, and a sense of equality in a relationship. These values resonate deeply, especially for those who may feel boxed in by the sometimes rigid social norms in Japan. American men are often seen as emotionally available, communicative, and supportive, qualities that many women find refreshing. Now, it's worth saying up front, not every Japanese woman is into American men. In fact, most probably aren't. But the women who are, they tend to be the ones already open to international dating, especially those on dating sites or matchmaking platforms. These women are intentionally looking for something different. For them, dating someone from a completely different culture isn't just exciting. It's a conscious choice. One major reason behind the attraction: financial stability. In Japan, the dating scene can be fiercely competitive, especially when it comes to finding a man with a secure job and long-term potential. American men, particularly those who are ready to settle down and provide for a family, can stand out as solid, reliable partners. There's also the element of social perception. Dating or marrying an American, especially a white man from the US, can sometimes be seen as a boost in status. Even if the couple ends up living outside Japan, there's a certain level of respect and admiration that comes with international marriage. It can feel like breaking free from societal expectations and choosing something bold and exciting. Then there's the lifestyle appeal. The Western way of dating, more direct, casual, and emotionally expressive, can be a breath of fresh air for many Japanese women. Compared to the often formal and layered relationship dynamics in Japan, American-style relationships can feel more relaxed and open. It's about enjoying each other's company, being honest, and not needing to follow a script. When it comes down to what these women are really looking for, it's pretty simple: stability and love. A Japanese woman might be drawn to the idea of marrying an American guy, sure, but deep down, she's looking for someone she can truly count on. That means being emotionally steady, financially secure, and ready to commit. And let's not forget, family approval matters a lot. So having a solid job and good future prospects isn't just a bonus, it's basically a must. But more than anything, these women are looking for simplicity. They're not interested in old-school traditions, confusing gender roles, or trying to decode someone else's culture. They just want a genuine connection with someone who truly sees them and wants to build something real together. But if you take a step back, there's a quiet crisis brewing in the background. You see, in Japan, for people over 35, getting married can feel less like a milestone and more like a disappearing act. Back in 2005, around 31% of men aged 35 to 39 were still single. Fast forward 5 years, and only about 28% of that same group had tied the knot. That means just 1 in 10 of those single men actually got married by their early 40s. A tiny sliver, only about 3% of the overall population in that age bracket. For women, the numbers are even lower. During that same time frame, only about 10.8% of unmarried women in their late 30s ended up getting married. And when you zoom out, that's just around 2% of all women in that age group. Once they hit 45, it drops to practically zero. Only about 0.1% of women over 45 get married. So, what's behind this steep drop-off? Experts point to a mix of changing societal norms and deeply rooted personal habits. First, there's the fact that not getting married is becoming more socially acceptable. Then, there's the personality stuff. A lot of unmarried men in their mid-30s and beyond are deeply invested in hobbies, especially things like anime or gaming, that whole otaku culture. Others are buried in work, living the life of the classic overworked salaryman. Some have very few social connections and end up feeling invisible. similar to hikikomori who withdraw completely from society. On top of that, there's a perfectionist streak running through both men and women when it comes to finding a partner. People aim high and aren't big on compromise. Men especially, according to one consultant, often think they could do better, even when they're with someone who's a great match. That maybe I'm better off alone mindset becomes a deal breaker. Then there are the konkatsu events, basically speed dating or marriage parties. But these aren't fun little mixers. They're high stakes and high pressure. Attendees are often anxious to find someone, but also incredibly selective. Income, job status, social standing, all of it matters way more here than in regular dating. If a guy earns below the average salary, his chances of success at one of these events are slim to none. Looking at the bigger picture, what's happening in Japan might not just be a relationship crisis. It's starting to feel like a quiet rebellion. There's even a name for some of the guys who are opting out: herbivore men. These are men who aren't chasing money, power, or romantic partners like previous generations. They're not into corporate grind culture and don't see marriage as a priority. With few appealing options, many are simply walking away from dating and even full-time work altogether. Women, on the other hand, are rewriting the rules too. A new generation of highly educated, career-driven women are no longer settling just to settle. The traditional setup, where women are expected to do all the housework even if they're working full-time, is clashing hard with their modern goals. They want balance, and the old system isn't cutting it. Even back in the bubble economy of the 1980s, women had standards. They looked for the three highs: height, high income, and high education. But now, there's a new list: the 3 C's: financially comfortable, communicative, and cooperative with housework and childcare. That's not exactly the average guy, which might help explain the growing mismatch. So naturally, if fewer men fit the bill, fewer marriages are happening. But this isn't just about picky women or immature men. Some people argue that framing the issue that way, especially from a Western perspective, oversimplifies things. The real story is a lot more layered. A declining birth rate is also part of the puzzle. And it's not just because people aren't getting married. Even married women are saying no to kids because their partners don't pull their weight at home. A 2005 study found that Japanese women spent over 4 hours a day doing housework, while men averaged just over an hour. That imbalance isn't just unfair, it's a deal breaker. So now, many young people are stuck. They're more selective than ever, but waiting so long to find the right person that they risk running out of time altogether. And while it's easy to point fingers, the truth is that both men and women are grappling with unrealistic expectations and a system that hasn't caught up with what they really want. Now, here's how it usually goes. Most of the foreigners, especially Americans, who stick around in Japan long-term are guys. On the other hand, Japanese women often show more genuine interest in other cultures and languages than Japanese men. Put those two together, and it's no surprise that the international couples you see most often are Japanese women with foreign men. Now, like with any relationship, cultural mix or not, there's the sweet and the sour. Japanese women who've dated or married foreigners have shared both the perks and the pain points. One big assumption people make is that if a Japanese woman ends up with someone from another country, she must have passed up on dating local guys. But that's not always the full picture. A lot of women have talked about how there's something deeply comforting about dating someone from the same background, that unspoken cultural shorthand that just makes life feel easier. One woman mentioned she wanted to become a housewife after getting married, and in her eyes, a Japanese man might be the better match for that dream. It's what many couples in Japan have done for generations. Another woman chimed in with a more practical perk. Japanese husbands usually let their wives handle the home decor and foot the bill for it too. Foreign guys, on the other hand, aren't exactly cruising through international romance without their challenges. The biggest hurdle? Language. One woman talked about how hard it is to express herself fully when English isn't her first language. Another joked that even minor things, like arguing over leaving the toilet seat up, can get lost in translation. Her punchline? She wasn't sure if murder or slaughter was the right word in English, a perfect snapshot of how hard it is to argue in a second language. Then there's the deeper layer, culture clash. It can turn simple conversations into hours of decoding each other's mindset. One woman's younger sister married a South American guy, and they often butt heads over cultural expectations. Both of them care and want to make things work. But that Pacific Ocean between their upbringings doesn't exactly compromise a quick trip. And as couples get older, those tiny cracks can widen. One woman pointed out how food preferences became a battleground in her marriage. When they were younger, they were open to trying anything. But as time passed, they found themselves craving childhood comfort food, which, of course, didn't always match. It's one of those subtle shifts that can quietly pull couples apart after years together. Recently, a story made the rounds online where a group of foreign men shared what it's really like being married to Japanese women. Some of their complaints were totally fair, like dealing with big cultural shifts or communication struggles. But others, a little over the top. One guy actually complained about tofu. Tofu. That alone shows how far off expectations can be when people walk into international relationships expecting a picture-perfect romantic comedy ending. Spoiler: real life doesn't work like my darling is a foreigner. Shifting gears, things get a bit more serious when looking at stories from foreign men who went through divorces with their Japanese wives. And what might surprise some people is that most of these breakups didn't come down to obvious cultural clashes. Instead, it was often everyday challenges, money problems, family obligations, or simply growing apart that did the real damage. One guy explained how trying to be the perfect provider crushed him. He had a good job and wanted to give his wife everything: a nice house, a car, fancy vacations. But add in student loans, child support from a previous relationship, and even sending money to his in-laws, and it all became too much. He realized he'd been trying to make everyone happy, but forgot to look after himself. Another man shared a painful but peaceful story. He and his wife were both aware of their cultural differences and respected them. But when it came time to take care of his aging parents, things got complicated. He had to choose between bringing them to Japan or moving his wife to Virginia. In the end, they split, not because they didn't love each other, but because life had other plans. Children, or the lack of them, were another deal breaker. One man admitted that the reason his marriage ended was pretty straightforward. His wife wanted kids, and he didn't. No yelling matches, no betrayal, just two people who wanted different futures. He later remarried someone who shared his views, and life moved on. There was even a story from a woman dating a Japanese man again after 12 years apart. Their first relationship failed due to clashing values around work and priorities. But when they got back together, their families didn't approve. Despite being in love, they found themselves wondering if love was enough to bridge the gap between family expectations and personal happiness. Of course, not all stories were calm and mutual. Some were rough. One man said his marriage was unraveling because of intimacy issues. They got along fine, no major fights, but there was no physical affection left. Another man married young and realized too late that he had no idea what he wanted from life. His wife, unhappy with his demanding labor job and long hours, ended up having an affair. They simply hadn't been honest with themselves from the start. There were even cases where anger and violence played a major role. One man described his wife as someone who turned every small disagreement into a huge battle, draining them both mentally. Another recounted how his wife was abusive, lied constantly, and ignored their children. After divorcing, he said life was dramatically better. He was now raising his kids in America and finally felt at peace. Then came a truly wild one. A man talked about how, right after their honeymoon, his wife passed gas in front of him, with enough force to be unforgettable. But it didn't stop there. She stole food off his plate, became aggressive in bed, and hit him when things didn't go her way. That marriage fell apart faster than a house of cards in a typhoon. Still, not every story ended in heartbreak. One man in his 60s, happily married to his Japanese wife for over 20 years, offered a bright light at the end of the tunnel. He had 2 divorces behind him and believed Western women just weren't the right fit for him. But with his Japanese wife, they'd weathered every storm and never even considered divorce. For him, mutual respect and cultural understanding were the real glue. So, when it comes down to it, these stories show that while cultural differences can play a role, the real challenges in international marriages often come from the same things any couple struggles with: love, communication, expectations, and compromise. It's not about where someone is from, it's about who they are and whether both people are willing to grow together. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, comment, and turn on post notifications to stay updated with our latest content.